What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Jungle Cup, and the team we're going to take a look at today is Shadow, Scizor, Sableye, and Lantern. Now this is very similar to a team in my top teams video, and the reason I want to take a look at this team is mostly because of Water Gun Lantern. Now, you might be wondering, Mark, why would you run Water Gun Lantern when so many of these Pokemon in this meta take either neutral or super effective damage from Electric? You've got Altaria, which takes neutral, Corviknight, which takes super effective. And let me show you right here. So on the right, we've got Lantern versus Altaria, one with Water Gun and one with Spark. Now, naturally, Water is resisted on Dragon, which means it's doing resisted damage on the Altaria. So it's only doing 2 damage per turn, but it is a 1 turn move. However, Spark is neutral, and but it is a 2-turn move, and it only does 3 damage per turn, which means you're actually doing 4 damage per every 2 turns with Water Gun, and 3 damage per every 2 turns on Spark. So you're actually doing more damage with Water Gun, and that's the case for a lot of different situations. So that is why we're running Water Gun on Lantern. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop into the battles. Alright, into the first match. These matches were done on stream, this 10-0, so the quality might be a little bit below normal, but into the first match, we've got a mirrored match with Shadow Scizor versus Shadow Scizor. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think there was a single CMP tie that I won, even with a 6-attack Shadow Scizor, so truly incredible stuff. Everyone must be running attack-weighted Scizors these days. It looks like neither of us got the boost, so I'm just going to throw the second Night Slash as soon as I get it, and in comes a Guzzlord to make the catch of the resisted charge move. At this point, I can farm back up nearly to my Night Slash, just 1 short, and then go for the catch on a Sableye. I don't have a good answer to Guzzlord in the back, so I have to come in with Sableye here. They will be able to connect with a second Brutal Swing, but that's okay because I snuck a Shadow Claw on the catch, which means I am able to make it to 1 and the move to make it to the Power Gem. And Power Gem is neutral damage on the Guzzlord. It will pick up the knockout, and if that Shadow Scizor comes in and gets an energy lead, I'm basically just going to have to sacrifice my own Scizor here, and then come in with Lantern to run. That's exactly what I'm going to do, but the opponent instead pivots into a Steelix in the back. I go for the Night Slash. That does some okay chip, and it's actually a Dragon Tail Steelix. So quicker to the charge moves, and these Dragon Tails, of course, will start adding up with these Psychic Fangs damage, but Water Guns and Surfs are super effective. They come pretty slow, but they will get the job done. Back in comes the Scizor. They can't get that double resisted Bullet Punch farm down, so they will resign the match, and we are able to take a Game 1 win. Into the next match, pretty good lead. We've got Shadow Scizor into Altaria. The opponent's going to pivot into a Forretress, and I don't have a great response to Forretress in the back. So I'm going to stay in, I'm going to chip with a Night Slash, and then I'm going to pivot into my Sableye, because Sableye is the king of neutral matchups here. Now that the Fortress has been chipped, and because they're so slow to the charge moves, I know I can live 1 Sand Tomb very comfortably, let that go, farm up as much as I can to the back-to-back foul plays, and now foul play number 1 will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Fortress, and if that Altaria comes back in, I'm going to be able to make it to a super effective charge move. Yeah, here comes a super effective Power Gem, Dazzling Gleam 2, I would have gotten there, but Power Gem connects, that does more than 50% of the HP, and I'm going to make an interesting play here. I'm going to come in with my Lantern, and the reason for that is Altaria is completely walled. Sky Attack and Flamethrower are both resisted. They end up throwing their energy, which is huge, and you can see these Water Guns are actually doing some pretty solid chip, and in the back is a Shadow Scizor. I am able to outpace, make it to the Surf before they're able to get to the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is, of course, super effective, so I'm going to throw 4 more Water Guns, pivot into my Scizor, trying to get the catch, and unfortunately, I do not get it. But that is okay, because Night Slash picks up the knockout. All I have to do is save 2 shields for the Lantern. Lantern's in a great position here because Bullet Punches are double resisted, and they just cannot get to enough charge moves. Even if they get to another charge move, that's going to be okay. I think this is just enough for the Night Slash, but it doesn't matter. Their Altaria is completely walled, so I'm definitely going to be connecting shields here, and now all I have to do is make it to the back-to-back Surfs before the opponent can make it to back-to-back charge moves. Surf number 1 will grab the shield from the opponent. Can I make it to Surf number 2? I can, but on the CMP tie, losing CMP, or maybe they just got their 1 turn before, but I should be able to live a Sky Attack on 1 HP, make it to the Surf, and Surf from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Altaria, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Scissor into Gyarados. So this is a little bit unfortunate because obviously bullet punches are resisted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 4 bullet punches and then pivot trying to catch the Aqua Tail onto my Sableye. I'm unsuccessful. The opponent didn't go for their charge move right away, which is pretty interesting. They will connect with an Aqua Tail before pivoting into a Piloswine. Now Piloswine does take neutral damage from both Foul Play and Power Gem, but they let me to get 2 back-to-back foul plays, and now I'm just hoping that I can grab a shield here, and I do. That is absolutely huge. Can I get to a 3rd foul play? It looks like I would, so the opponent is forced to throw energy, and that is huge because we're already up a shield now, and now in comes the Shadow Scissor. I will, of course, have to respect a Stone Edge here. Stone Edge would do massive neutral damage to the Scizor. Stone Edge does come through. We get the shield call correct, but now we have an energy lead. So what I can do is I can farm up to the back-to-back Night Slashes, and once I get there, the opponent just cannot commit a shield here. They cannot survive a Night Slash from this range, and they will get outpaced, so they do let it go. In the back is a Magnezone. I haven't seen it as a Shadow or not, but most typically are on the Shadow, and it is. So now all I have to do is farm up to the Night Slash, but I was worried I would lose CMP, so I go for the catch. If the opponent went for a bait, this is going to be a double resisted metal mirror shot. So and we're able to outpace, make it to the Surf. Surf from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Magnezone. No, they actually live on 1 HP, but they are 1 volt switch short of the back-to-back. So here comes Wild Charge number 1. It actually does pick up the knockout, but because they were 1 short, I'm able to make it to the Night Slash that we banked, and Night Slash picks up the knockout on the Magnezone, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Scissor into Shadow Scissor. You're going to see quite a few of these because I think people pretty quickly picked up on the fact that Shadow Scissor would be very strong in this meta. Able to make it to the Night Slash. The opponent actually goes for a catch on a Salazzle. Fortunately, they don't do the wait and sneak because otherwise that Incinerate basically would have KO'd. But now in comes the Lantern. Lantern looking for the full Water Gun farm down, just barely, not quite able to get it. But we can very comfortably survive a Poison Fang from this range. And if that Scissor comes back in, they're going to have a tough time because Bullet Punches are double resisted. So instead, my opponent comes in with their final Pokemon, which is a Dedenne. Now, Dedenne is actually pretty tough for this team. So they will go for a Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge from this range should be enough to knock out, especially with that Poison Fang debuff, and it does. And now that they've boosted their defense, fortunately, I do have a shield advantage in this matchup, so I can just commit a shield. And then what I'll do is I'll look to connect with the Trailblaze on the CMP Tide to force my opponent to make a decision. So now here comes the Trailblaze. I'm overfarmed by a single Bullet Punch, and Trailblaze from this range would be enough to pick up the knockout, so the opponent does commit a shield. Now they do have a Night Slash banked on the Scissor, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit the shield, and then I'm going to pivot into my Sableye, expecting the combo play from the opponent, and they do go for it. So we get the catch of the Night Slash, and it looks like I actually snuck a Shadow Claw in there with that catch, so I'm able to make it to the Foul Play. Foul Play from this range picks up the knockout on the Shadow Scissor. Back in comes the Dedenne, but they're going to get farmed down, so they resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got a Shadow Talonflame on the lead, so this is an abysmal lead. Gonna throw 1 Bullet Punch, switch into my Sableye, and defer that Incinerate damage, and we end up luring out a Credilli. So this is actually a really nice thing to lure out, because this is something that the Lantern absolutely does not want to see. Credilli will now be able to connect with a Rock Tomb, but that is not enough to pick up the knockout, and I think I can pick up a knockout, I was going to say with a Power Gem from this range, even with my attack lowered, but maybe not. Going to go for the Foul Play instead. Looks like maybe I would have. I need to flip switch here, so I am going to commit the shield, knowing that I can get the fast move farm down before they can. Rock Tomb does connect, but I will still come out with a double super effective Power Gem, so if that Talonflame wants to come back in, they will have to give me that shield or take massive damage from this Power Gem. In comes the Talonflame, we go for the Power Gem, and that does end up grabbing a shield, but now we have even shield scenario and Lantern on there. Talonflame and Scissor on the Guzzlord, so this is a fantastic place to be in. Of course, my energy is completely walled here, but I will commit the shield on the Brutal Swing and go for the Trailblaze to boost my Bullet Punches, because Bullet Punches are the only thing that I really need in this matchup. They do end up committing the shield on the Trailblaze as well. They're going to be able to make it to a second Brutal Swing, but this will not be enough to knock out the Scissor. Scissor does hang on deep into the red, but we get to the Night Slash. This is resisted damage, but it's boosted, when it should be enough to pick up the knockout on the Guzzlord, and now back in comes the Lantern to take care of this Talonflame. Most Shadow Talonflames are not on Brave Bird, they are on Flame Charge and Fly, and my opponent reveals they are on Flame Charge. They were probably going to go for the Flame Charge into the Fly, but unfortunately for my opponent, that is not enough. Surf picks up the knockout on the Talonflame, and we are going to take that win. And that is the first 5-0 set with this team. Into next match, picking up a good lead, we've got Shadow Scizor into Pile of Swine. The opponent is going to save switch into a Diggersby, and I make, I think, an incorrect play here. I think I should go for the Fire Punch catch after 5 Bullet Punches. However, this is the Shadow Scizor, so they might not even be running the Fire Punch. Instead, actually, no, they probably are. Fire Punch plus Scorching Sands. But this opponent, you're going to find out, actually is running Hyper Beam. Shadow Hyper Beam would have done massive damage to the Lantern. That's a huge shield. And then we get the full Water Gun farm down, and now in comes an Altaria. But they are so far behind on energy, and I'm not in Dragon Breath range, so they're going to have to take multiple neutral Thunderbolts, and these Water Guns are doing so much damage to the Altaria, it's actually insane. Thunderbolt number 2 actually grabs a shield from the opponent, so now we have evened the shield scenario. We are going to make it to another charge, so the opponent is forced to throw energy, and guess what? Lantern comfortably survives this guy attack from that range, also able to make it to a Surf, and this Water Gun Lantern is putting in so much work against the opponent's team. We grabbed 2 shields with that alone, and now all I have to do is align my my Sableye here. Back in comes the Pile of Swine. Pile of Swine will easily get outpaced. We make it to the Night Slash. And even if they make it to a Stone Edge, this game is over. So we end up getting the boost, but I'm just going to let this go. I can trust in Sableye with a shield to win this game. They end up going for the Icicle Spear. Maybe they didn't even have the Stone Edge. But we get the Bullet Punch farm down. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win into the next match. Picking up a bit of a neutral lead, we've got Shadow Scizor into Dunsparce. This is the tiniest Dunsparce I have ever seen. The opponent goes for good timing, which means I am able to make it to the Trailblaze first, and this actually grabs a shield from the opponent, and now my attack is boosted. However, they are 1 away from the back-to-back, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 1 and then move and then go for the catch, but the opponent instead tries to snipe with a Talonflame, only to be met with Water Gun Lantern, and before they can even get to a charge move, they're already at half HP thanks to these Water Guns. They go for the Fly. It's not enough to knock out. They would get to a second Fly, so I will be forced to throw energy here, but that's okay, because not having to expend the shield in this matchup would be nice. But they even commit a shield, but I still don't think a Fly is going to knock out from this range, so I will let it go. Fly doesn't pick up the knockout. We get the Water Gun farm down, and now we've got a shield advantage and a switch advantage. In comes a Superior, only to be met with the Shadow Scizor. We end up going for the catch onto the Sableye after throwing 2 Bullet Punches, and we do get that Drill Run catch. That is absolutely massive. They will be able to make it to a second Drill Run before I make it to another charge move, but that's okay, because all I'm looking to do here is farm up to the back-to-back charge moves. I should throw 3 here and then the charge move, but instead I throw 4. However, this does limit farm for my opponent, so I guess this is fine as well. And now I can just go for the Foul Play. Foul Play. We'll do some okay chip to the Superior, but Superior is very bulky. It can hang on. Now in comes the Shadow Scizor comboing with the Night Slash. Night Slash is neutral damage. Everything is double resisted from my opponent, except for the Aerial Ace, but most aren't running the Aerial Ace this season. They let me get the full Bullet Punch farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Scizor into Shadow Scizor, but my opponent is flexing on us. They have the shiny Shadow Scizor, which is a very cool pick for my opponent. Of course, they will win a CMP against my Shadow Scizor, so I will end up committing the shield. Night Slash comes through. Here comes a Night Slash of my own. Is the opponent going to commit the shield back and just play out this matchup? Yes, they are. So it looks like my opponent may have gotten the boost, because you see their Bullet Punches are doing massive damage to me, and we don't see the animation because we throw on CMP, but they end up going for the Night Slash instead of the full farm down, which is very handy. And now in comes Water Gun Lantern taking the double resisted Bullet Punches. We get the full Water Gun farm down before they're able to make it to another charge move, and now in comes a Stunfisk, but Stunfisk is down on energy. That allows me to outpace, make it to the Surf, and Surf is super effective damage. It does pretty big damage to the Stunfisk, and then I go for the catch onto the Sableye, and we get it. That is absolutely massive. Mud Bomb connects. That's neutral damage. They're going to farm back to another Mud Bomb, but I throw on the CMP tie, but no, instead, my opponent goes for the catch, banking that Mud Bomb for later into a Hippowdon in the back. This is a Shadow Hippowdon at that. But they do allow us to get to yet another Foul Play. This will likely grab the final shield from the opponent, and it does. They will have to go for a Scorching Sands to pick up the knockout here, but I will just let this go because I can save my shield for the Lantern and go for the Water Gun farm down. They go for the Weather Ball. That's actually enough to pick up the knockout. They do have enough for the Scorching Sands here, so I will respect it with a shield because I'm way more worried about a Shadow Scorching Sands from a Hippowdon than a Mud Bomb from a Stunfisk. I know I can live a Mud Bomb from this range, and they are on the 5 cycle, so I will be able to go for the full Water Gun farm down, but no point in risking it when I know the Hippowdon is dry on energy. So Surf picks up the knockout on the Stunfisk. We get the Water Gun farm down of the Hippowdon, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Scizor once again into Shadow Scizor. You already know how this goes. We're going to throw 5 bullet punches into the Night Slash, lose CMP, but no, the opponent instead goes for the overfarm. Maybe they're going to go for the 2 shield play and go straight for the Trailblaze. We're going to have to see. The opponent has put us into the yellow because they have 1 extra bullet punch through, but that's okay. They go for the Night Slash. The opponent ends up winning CMP on the second Night Slash. They must have known, and that's why they decided to overfarm. Night Slash does pick up the knockout, but we already know how this goes. We're going to go for the full Water Gun farm down, and we do get it. That is absolutely massive. And now in comes a Acid Credilli. So this is actually not too bad for the Lantern because we have an energy lead, which means we will be able to outpace, make it to the Surf, and the opponent will have to go for a Grass Knot. So instead, I go for the catch of the Grass Knot onto my Sableye. Unfortunately, I am unsuccessful. The opponent holds onto their energy. Then they can now connect with a Rock Tomb against the Sableye, but in comes a Togekiss. Togekiss will take super effective damage from the Power Gem, so having this coverage is super nice. Power Gem does land on the Togekiss, doing massive damage. And now they will go for a charge move, but they are likely completely walled here. Both Aura Sphere and Psyshock are resisted, but it is enough to pick up the knockout. Back in comes Lantern. I know I have to let this go because I'm more worried about another charge move from the opponent in the back. I will end up getting the full Water Gun farm down. Back in comes the Credilli, but Credilli will get outpaced to the Surf. And if they want to commit a shield here, they're going to have to because I'm going to make it to a second Surf. Even if they go for the Rock Tomb to lower my attack, I think these Water Guns should put them into range where a neutral Surf will be enough to knock out. We're about to find out. Here comes another Surf. And is this enough to knock out the bulky Credilli with the Rock Tomb debuff from this range? No, it's not, but we get the Water Gun farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Scizor into Abomasnow. This is a fantastic lead. It doesn't get better than this. The opponent is going to pivot into an Araquanid, and I don't have a great response to Araquanid in the back unless they are completely walled with a Lantern. So I'm going to come in with the Lantern, and even though I'm not running Spark, these Water Guns, they're not going to do pretty much any damage, but these Bug Bites will add up, and unfortunately my opponent is on Bug Buzz, so that puts me in a pretty tricky situation. I now will go for the Thunderbolt. This will do massive super effective damage, so the opponent does end up committing shield. Looks like they're trying to flip switch here, but I don't think this is enough for a Bug Buzz, or if it is, I think they're just going to go straight Bubble Beam, so I will let it go. It is the Bubble Beam bait. That does very little damage. They can't even get the full Bug Bite farm down before we make it to a second Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt from this range grabs a second shield from my opponent, so that is okay, because if I get an energy lead on the Sableye, I can come out with a super effective Power Gem for the Abomasnow so that the Abomasnow has nowhere to run. So I'm going to farm up. I'm looking for the full farm down. I can't quite get it. They've lowered my attack once. Here comes the second lowering of the attack. So now I'm just going to pivot into my Scizor and look for the full farm down. But in comes a Clodsire in the back. And this is a great position to be in because Scizor has a 2 shield advantage, and guess who's going to get the 2 times attack boost from the first Night Slash? It's the Shadow Scizor. Now I'm just going to look to overfarm, look to pick up the knockout with the next Night Slash right as they get to the second Stone Edge. Looking to throw on the CMB tie. The opponent may have overfarmed by 1, or maybe I miscounted, but now here comes the Night Slash. This picks up the knockout on the Clodsire. We get a second boost on the Shadow Scizor, and the opponent has had enough. They resign the match, and we are able to take that win, and that is the second 5-0 set with this team. So yeah, if you haven't already figured this meta out, Shadow Scizor and Lantern are both extremely strong, so expect to see them absolutely everywhere. Obviously, this team worked out incredibly for me. I went 10-0 live on stream, and that was a fantastic run, especially after using a team which didn't work out perfectly too early on. But yeah, this is definitely a team you're going to have to look out for. Maybe build against something like this team, maybe find a core breaker, maybe look at things like Gastron or Quagsire, where bullet punches are resisted on the Scizor, you outpace them, and you have super effective mud shots for the Lantern. Maybe you could even run Mud Bomb and Stone Edge on the Quagsire. So just some things to consider, because otherwise Pokemon like these are going to run through your team. But before I wrap up this video, I want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Sohan Patil, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Alright 504, and Chompus Clips. And an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Musachu, Noodleman, Speedster, Estros, Fastity Boss, CD Slaskus, and Castle. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.